welcome everyone to our first Catventurous podcast. And it's my great honour to welcome Mary from Mr. Bingley, Maine Coon. Mary and I have had a lot of contact on Instagram. We've been involved in organising and coordinating the Cats On Leash Awareness campaign, and it's just my honour to have Mary here as my first podcast guest. So thank you for being here, Mary.
Thank you, Charlotte, for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. So if you could just start out perhaps giving us an idea of how Mr. Bingley and Emma came into your family and how how that all happened, and
Sure.
and perhaps a few of the reasons why you decided to offer them a Catventurous lifestyle, meaning a lifestyle where they go out on leash.
Yeah. Well, Emma was feral. She was born in the wild with a couple of siblings and was found with her mother right after they were given birth, and brought into a local veterinarian, and they stayed in a cage until they were old enough, the kittens, to be adopted. And the boys and the mom were adopted, and Emma was still left behind. And coincidentally, we had some veterinary care with our dog, and
We've got a lost connection.
yep, I'm
Are you
here.
there? Okay.
I am.
These things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's roll. So, you were telling us about Emma was left, the one left at the vet.
Yes. Yes. So Emma was left behind in a cage, and we went and picked her up the day after our dog passed away at the veterinarian. So we've had Emma for 15 years now, but because she was not really socialized, and she had an inherent need to go outside, we actually let her go in and out of the house on her own for her whole life, and she's done super well. But about 10 years into having Emma, we noticed a kitten that was feral in our neighborhood. And this kitten used to wander through our backyard occasionally. And then after about 2 years, this kitten came up to us. He was now a cat, when we came back from a trip to Australia. And we had been gone for 3 weeks. We had been gone, and he came up to me and he was rolling all over my feet, like, where have you been? Now, I had only fed him like 3 times tops in the whole 2-year period. And so he moved in, and his name was Mr. Knightley. But because he was feral, he was a big roamer, and we could not break him of that habit. So he used to go outside every single day, and then he would come home. Unfortunately, because of that habit, he was killed by a car right in our neighborhood. It was really, really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But we know that he had a much better life, and so we were thankful for that. But Emma was devastated, and we never thought that she would want another pet, but she really loved Mr. Knightley, and so we decided we'd get another kitten in the spring. So this happened in like October, beginning of October, and we got the kitten, Mr. Bingley, in December, and it was a little bit earlier than we had anticipated because he became available, and we didn't expect anything until spring. So we decided, after a long discussion, that we would take him early, and it was the best thing that we could ever have done. So we've had him now for a year as of December 16th last year.
Yeah. So that was December 2019.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He's turned out to be the biggest, sweetest ham ever. He's
He's
super
adorable.
sweet cat, and unfortunately Emma hasn't really taken to him like she did Mr. Knightley. And it's funny because they look very ssimilar. They're similar size, similar personality, and I think she just says, "You're not Mr. Knightley."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sure.
but they're getting better.
Yeah. Oh, good. And so what did you take Emma out on leash before Mr. Bingley arrived, or?
We actually tried with both Emma and Mr. Knightley, and it was before I was on Instagram. I didn't know anything about people taking cats out on leash. It was just something that I kind of instinctually thought of. And so we got a couple of dog harnesses and tried it, and they did the old flop on the floor thing, and I had no idea to expect that. And then it turns out Mr. Knightley was a Houdini. And so we would take him outside, and he would be out of that harness in like we couldn't even see him get out of it. He was so fast. And so, you know, it wasn't tight enough. I don't think it just didn't fit him well. And we didn't know how to make an adjustment, that kind of thing. And so we kind of gave up on that idea. And then when we got Mr. Bingley, I opened an Instagram account a couple of days before we brought him home. And I thought I would just use it to share, or as a storage place for my photos for him, not really thinking that anything would happen with it, just like a diary. And but I knew that he was never going outside unless he were on a leash.
Yeah.
And because safety was the number one priority. And he took to it like a duck to water. So but it was January when he first went outside, and he was only 3.5 months old at the time, and he was so cold. But so Emma was a complete failure before that.
Yeah.
But this past summer, we decided to try Emma again, and we used the vest style harness instead of like the H style.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so comfortable in that, and she took to it immediately. And there's really been no looking back. She's been on harness and leash ever since.
Oh, great. And do you think it was it Mr. Bingley that gave her the confidence, or was the harness change?
I think it was actually the combination of the two. She saw that he was out there and had no trouble with it. And when she put it on, it was actually warm for her.
Yeah.
And she's naturally gravitates towards the air ducts and the heated floor in our bathroom. She always wants to be warm. And I think that helped her a lot, that it actually kept her a little bit warmer, and the security of that style of harness makes a little calming factor as well.
Yeah, I think those vest type harnesses are really great for that, not only because they're probably more secure, but that sort of wrap around comfort feeling. I think it does really make a difference.
It does.
Well, should we talk about what harness and leash you use now? Now what are you using with both of them, and does it vary according to the season, or do different adventures, or which one do you use?
Well, we still use a vest style harness for the most part. And there are 3 brands that we work with, I mean, we purchase, I should say. I'm not representing any brand. So they're all custom made, which is great. So you get a good fit for your cat, and they're cat harnesses, not pet harnesses or dog harnesses.
I think that's really important.
It is. You get the feline features are accounted for, and so so we use those still. And one of them is really nice. It's called the Olivia cat jacket, and instead of the Velcro closure wrapping onto the stomach, it actually closes onto the back. And so, from like long hair, yes, it wraps all the way this way. And the Velcro's on the back as opposed to the stomach. And so that's really nice for a long-haired cat, because the fur gets caught in the stomach area. So now that's actually, it's a benefit. But the other 2 harness brands we still love and use all the time because they are a little more substantial than the Olivia cat jacket. So we use that one, and we use Minwood cat jackets and All Cats Good. And they're all Instagram available. You can look at their profiles there. And then I did get an H style harness recently to try, because I thought Mr. Bingley could use a little more freedom when he wants to run and play in the garden. And so I tried that, and it's actually working pretty well, but unfortunately I got the wrong style. And so it's actually a dog harness and not the cat harness, and it doesn't go around the neck. So I'm thinking I might get a different one and try that. But Emma's also used it too, and it's working well over sweaters.
Yes.
Yeah, she hasn't worn it without a sweater, but Mr. Bingley's used it both with a sweater and without, and he loves that freedom. So those are what we're using right now.
And does that vary between winter and summer? Do you use a lighter one in summer, or I guess you've only just got it, so you'll see how it goes in summer?
Yes, but so we've had the regular vest style you can get usually in a wool and sometimes a linen or a cotton fabric. And so we've gone to the cottons and linens for summertime, and then the wool in the winter time. But those harnesses are so forgiving for fit that you can easily put a sweater underneath it. And also because they're form fitting, you can put a jacket over it if you need to. So they're very flexible in that regard. But
Yeah,
I think
they're great.
for this summer, I'm going to try and use an age style in the garden. Not when we go to the forest, just because of bugs and picking up debris from the forest floor. And, you know, ticks are readily available in Michigan.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. Even though they're
Yeah.
treated for it, you can still pick up the insect. And so that's one extra layer of protection. And then in the fall, we have a lot of burrs. And burrs are horrible in long-haired cat fur.
For Mr. Bingley. Yeah, oh, well, Emma's got quite long fur too, hasn't she?
Yes, she does,
Yeah.
but his is probably 2 inches longer than hers. So
Yeah.
it's really a problem, and that other style harness is helpful.
Yeah, burrs are not your friend.
No, they're not. Especially with a cat who doesn't like to be brushed.
Yeah, for sure. Which one's that?
Mr. Bingley.
He doesn't like to be brushed. All that fur. Yeah, that's a lot. Well, is there, what really interests me a lot is different cat personalities and, what sort of range of characteristics are suitable for, this type of lifestyle for a cat. And are there any specific characteristics or traits that you see in your cats that you think make them, either one way or the other, and perhaps even neutral, but are really favorable for a Catventurous lifestyle or are not so favorable?
Well, that's an interesting question, because these are my first 2 cats that I've actually been able to do this with, and it never occurred to me to do it with any others. And their personalities are completely different, but they've both taken to it. So that's very interesting. Emma is a very curious cat, very independent, used to going out on her own and exploring, in our neighborhood, and all the neighbors know her. But switching over to this lifestyle, she is more of a trailblazer when we go out on a trail. And so she likes to lead the way. But Mr. Bingley is an observant cat, and he likes to see what's happening in his surroundings and take it all in. And he does a lot of sitting on the trail and sniffing before he moves on. But when we do, those are when they're separated, the 2 cats. So if I take just one of them, if we take both of them, it's a very interesting dynamic, because Emma will still be the trailblazer, but Mr. Bingley constantly keeps up and does not want to be left behind. So usually I'm in front with Emma and my husband is in back with Mr. Bingley, and he is literally walking on the trail perfectly on those days. When it's me and the 2 cats, it's a lot of smelling. So that combination is really good. It is. Yeah, it's really good. So Emma's kind of the driver when it's all 4 of us. And so I really enjoy that aspect of it. So I think that any cat can actually be Catventurous. You just have to be aware of what their natural tendencies are and their characteristics. And then if you have multiple cats, you've got to take into consideration the dynamic of the 2 together, of the family unit together, or one parent with the 2 cats together. So it can be challenging, but it's also really rewarding as long as you understand, what you're capable of doing on that particular scenario.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a really great point, because I think, there's a lot of focus on the cat's personality, but actually it's really important to understand the dynamics between the human and the cat, and each human and cat dynamic is really different. You're giving a really good example of that, how they behave when it's just you compared to when it's you and your husband. It's really interesting.
Now, and to that point, there's another thing that's really should be considered is when during the course of the day you take your cat out, because cats are so habitual. And initially we started to, I would take them out in the afternoons, in the warmer days in the mornings. But in the normal course of a 60-degree Fahrenheit day or something mid-range.
What's that in Celsius? Sorry, I have no idea.
18?
Oh yeah, 18. Okay. Yeah.
So like a moderately warm day. So when I take them out in the cooler afternoons, everything's fine, but that's normally like a nap time for a cat. But they've gotten so used to it that that's when they actually want to go out now. And but then if we do a long day, we'll go out in the mornings and then we'll just layer them up and remove the layers as it gets warmer.
Right. Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something that you have to think about too, is the natural inclination of the cat and when they like to be active.
Yeah, and when they like to be sleeping. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's really important to respect those cycles for sure. And a routine is really important for a cat venturer. I mean, it, you know, what
Totally.
they used to, yeah, to maintain a routine, it will just help them adapt to that kind of lifestyle much better, I think, because it, gives
Yes.
that extra layer of security, safety. They know what they know what they're doing with their human, and it, it adds that extra layer for sure.
Yeah.
So most of your adventures, are they mostly urban? Are they, forest? What sort of adventures do you go on?
Well, that's an interesting question. Emma is, as I said before, she's a little bit more curious. She's a braver cat. She's not afraid of things because she's got a lot of experience, and she's been, in our neighborhood free roaming for a long time until the switch. And so she actually feels comfortable in both urban and forest settings. Mr. Bingley, however, does not like sounds. He doesn't like trains. He doesn't like car traffic. He doesn't like bicycles. And now he's afraid of dogs after, some neighborhood incidents that he's been experiencing. And so he does not like the urban setting. And I've taken him a couple of times. And when we do that, we tend to take our wagon and the backpack as well, so that he can actually feel really safe on those kinds of adventures.
So what is the wagon? What's the wagon that you're using?
We have a wagon that we pull by hand, and we use it to
yes, I
go
think
to,
okay.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so he has a place that he can sit and he can observe everything. And then if he wants to get out, he'll let me know, and I'll let him out. He can get out on his own. He can hop out. He's on his leash, and I'm holding the leash as well as pulling the wagon simultaneously. But he always lets me know. I can tell when he wants to get out to explore and when he feels comfortable. But within our small city, we have a number of parks, and we also have a major river that flows through into the city of Detroit. And that river is smaller near us, but we have a park along that we can walk along. And so we actually walk over to that. And so it's an urban setting to get there. But then it's very natural setting once we arrive. So he prefers the forest setting, and no distractions. He just loves the forest. And part of that is because he was born during COVID, and when we brought him home, it was a year ago, 3 months now. And so he's really been a COVID kitten the whole time. And so he kind of lost that socialization that he experienced before.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's made a big difference. When you're out on adventures, what are the things that you do that help to create safety? So we've talked about a couple of things there. We talked about the harness that can provide some safety. We talked about the routine and the relationship with you. What are the other things that you do that help to create that sense of safety for your cat, which I think is so important for Catventurous? It just can't be overstated. Yeah.
Well, so we tried to keep the cats in their bags in the car if we're not walking. And so that didn't really work out for Emma. She got car sick, and we never really thought about it before, but as a kitten, when she was in that cage for 5 months, you kind of feel like that creates anxiety for her. And it really only occurred to me in the last month or so that that's probably why she doesn't like to be inside the carrier in the car. So we've allowed her to be out of the car on our leash still, and she sits on her lap, either mine while I'm driving or Tom's if both of us are in the car. And so that gives her a nice calm beginning to the trip now. And Mr. Bingley, he's just so easygoing. He lays on the floor and he waits. And then when we get to wherever we're going, we open the doors and let them kind of like smell while they're inside the car. And in the meantime, Tom and I get everything out to get set. We put the backpack on, or two if we've brought 2 backpacks. And then we start the cats out on or in the backpacks, if it's a new place especially. Sometimes Mr. Bingley knows where we are, and he will hop right out of the car and onto the ground, which is great because that's what we're striving for. But if it's a new place and they're a little uneasy, we immediately put them up top and start walking and let them observe. And that really creates that sense of safety for them.
Yeah.
And they know that they can get down whenever they want. And, you know, we've got these cues that we pick up from them and we know when they want down. Usually Emma will just hop right down.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Wow, she's a brave. She's super brave, huh?
Bravest cat I've ever met. She is so brave.
Yeah, because I don't think I got that sense from Instagram, and so it's great to talk to you and get that sense of who she is. Yeah,
she's amazing. She really is. I mean, she goes out and the first thing she does is if she sees a river, she is at the river's edge. And if there's a log over it, she is on that log and hanging out over the river.
Good on
her. Me out.
Yeah,
she's super brave.
Oh, bless her. And I had no idea she was 15. So she's she's amazing.
She's a very young 15-year-old.
Very young. Yeah, she doesn't have the countenance of a 15-year-old cat at all.
No, and I think that part of that, she's not food driven, so she's never carried any extra weight, which brings a lot of the lethargy and the sleeping cat that you have.
Kind of that.
Think of it. That's usually when they start to kick in the elderly cat problems and that kind of thing. But she hasn't had any of those, so we're thankful for that.
She's amazing. Yeah. Well, the other thing that I would like to talk about in that sort of vein too, and a thing that I really want to emphasize with Catventurous is the human-cat bond. So are there particular things that you do, not necessarily when you're out catventuring, are there things that you do that are specifically designed to enhance that bond that you have with them? So then when you go out, there's that kind of that credit in the bank to draw on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I started that with Mr. Bingley right away. One of the things I was always concerned about is, okay, what if he got away while we're out in the forest on his leash? And how am I going to get him back? So as soon as I got him, before he'd even been outside, I started teaching how to come. And I used his cat tunnel for that. And he would be at one end, and a little tiny kitten is going to race through that tunnel. And so I would, before he would race, I would say, come. And I had a clicker, and I used the clicker training, and he would race through the tunnel to me and nose boot me, and I would give him a treat. And so he's always been really good about he's been really good about coming. I mean, he's a little more independent now and it's harder, but we still focus on that particular training, which helps us create a bond of trust and safety even. And also an aspect of fun, because he loves doing that. And so racing through a tunnel or racing across the yard to me in the garden, with me luring him with a stick is like one of his favorite pastimes. Yeah. So, that's one of the things that we do to build trust. And he's like a shadow. He's always at my side. And if I'm not home, then he's at my husband's side. So he's naturally got that inclination. Emma, on the other hand, she's more wary, just given her history, how she was initially brought up for the first 5.5 months of her life, being in a veterinarian, scared of dogs and loud sounds and everything. But she overcame that, and she is naturally a one family cat. She's not very outgoing with other people, and she's a little bit timid when people come over to the house, and she won't come out until she really knows them. So she's been a little more challenging to create that bond, but we have it. We just don't have it with anyone else, or she doesn't have it.
Well, that doesn't matter in the end, does it? As long as she's bonded with you for going out. Yeah.
So, we haven't really had to do much more than that with her, because she totally trusts us. But she's a little nervous when she first started catventuring in the backpack, just because it was all such a new experience, and she was going to places she'd never been before. And so it was really critical to keep her in the bag and talk to her softly and gently and stroke her head and under her chin to reassure her. And so I do that kind of thing at home as well. She gets a lot of that chin stroking and reassuring talk throughout the course of the day, and that helps her.
Yeah, great bonding time. what are some of the things? I mean, I think that all of us who take cats on leash, we've experienced people when we're out and about that are just don't get it. They just do not understand why would you want to have a cat on leash? And so what are some of the things that you think people most misunderstand? Like, is it just that they have never seen it before, or are they against it, or what are from your experience, what are those things? Yeah.
I think what mostly it is a lot of times we see people with dogs. And so there's a lot of scenarios where you're either a cat person or a dog person. And then there's a few people in between that love both and have both. But for the most part, if you're taking a dog out, you're a dog person. And so I think it's just like never occurred to them that they could actually train a cat and a cat would enjoy going on a leash. So there's that. I think that's the main thing. It just doesn't occur to people that it's a possibility. And then the others are, like, wow, how did that happen? How were you able to train? And then the others are just like, that's a cat, just like, that's the main thing I think that we see out there is really. Yeah. I did get one time, they thought Mr. Bingley was a raccoon. Oh. That was they would actually see a raccoon on a leash before a cat. Oh.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think that it is mostly that people are just kind of surprised.
Yeah.
It doesn't compute immediately, and so it comes across like maybe it comes across as they kind of don't understand just in that moment of not really, it's something they haven't seen before. But yeah, it's interesting that people do misunderstand the motivations and the reasons why we do it, and I hope through things like the campaign that we've been coordinating, and hopefully through this podcast and other people really communicating about taking cats on leash, I hope that misunderstanding starts to kind of melt away a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, I mean, just as a child growing up, we had cats and they would go outside and they would come in, and you just never thought, oh, a cat's trainable, but in fact they are trainable. And
highly trainable.
Some to really great degrees of training. I mean, cats are in movies, so those cats are trained. So people have to, they don't think about that. But then the other thing is, and this is, my opinion is that humans now think of cats in a different way than they used to even 20 years ago and 40 years ago. And so there's been a huge evolution in the thought of the cat as a companion. And I think that's, opening a lot of people's eyes to the ability to be a Catventurous cat, as opposed to just being a companion inside the home. And with people being more, having more active lifestyles into later periods of their lives, it's great to have a companion that can go outside with you and enjoy that. And
isn't it? It's wonderful.
Yeah,
it's so wonderful.
You learn so much by observing what your cat is doing, and it slows it down, the whole adventure, really allowing you to soak it in, and it just really has improved it. I mean, I've always been an active hiker, and I've never really observed as much as I have since I got Mr. Bingley.
Through the eyes.
Yeah, that's a blessing. It's really put me back to my childhood, where I used to go sit in the woods all the time when I was growing up, and just be there. And so it's kind of put me back into that childhood mindset, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. I mean, it's just such a pleasure to have Melba with us. Like you, we're hikers. We love to get out there, but she really has shifted our. I mean, I can't really say we enjoy it more, but we just enjoy it in a really different way. It's just adds this wonderful dimension to have her with us, and like you say, to see the world kind of through her eyes. And she just loves being out there, and it really has added a wonderful aspect to our hikes. So it's I hope people will come to understand how just really how wonderful it is to do those things with your cat. It is.
It's so true. And honestly, having a cat with you on the trail, you see a lot of different animals that you might have missed as you were walking because the cat sees it.
Yeah.
And that's a bonus.
Yeah, that sure is. No, it's just wonderful. So what is the most important thing that you've learned throughout this journey so far? It's an ongoing learning experience, but what have you learned so far?
I think the most important thing I've learned is that I'm capable of doing something with my cat that I had not thought of even just 2 years ago, and that don't limit yourself and don't limit your cat.
Yeah, I love that. Because it's so, I love that you said that, because I think people see sometimes, and I can only speak in generalities, but I think some people see that we're limiting our cats by doing this, but actually, no, it's the opposite.
Right.
Like it's just to give them this, or it can be viewed as the opposite. I love what you've just said there. Yeah.
And the thing is, you're going to get the most veterinarians and cat, I don't know, scientists or whatever, people that are that study cats are going to say, don't let your house cat outside. I mean, that's just the mindset now. We've gone from having barn cats, because we're not an agricultural society anymore, to having cat as a companion. Well, if you still want to enrich your cat's life, to go outside and explore your garden or whatever, you want to do it in a safe manner. And so it is actually giving your cat the world, as opposed to having their world be the tiny inside of your home.
Yeah,
it's just, if you think about that as a human, you wouldn't want to be homebound like that. And so why would your pet?
Yeah, no, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to give your cat some new perspectives in life.
Yeah. And flipping those attitudes that see it as limiting a cat in some way, no, it's keeping them safe and allowing them to experience life, in ways that expand their horizons, keep them safe, keep wildlife safe. For me, it's
especially the
wildlife for sure. I mean, that's a really problematic issue now. And perhaps it always has been, but we're just becoming more sensitized to it now. The damage that cats can do.
I think that we have the trap, neuter, release programs all around our country in the United States, and I think everywhere has similar programs. And that itself is a fabulous, fantastic program, but at the same time, those cats are still outside, and so they're decimating the wildlife population of the birds and the small rodents, kind of thing. And in some ways, it's a benefit. You cut back the rodent population in the cities and the urban areas, but you don't want to lose all of the ecosystems that are out there. And so if you remove a bird population, the ecosystem is going to change. And so there's all those things. And I think with a Cat on Leash, you're really helping to control what happens within the scope of nature in that regard. And you're killing the songbirds and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. And what would be your best piece of advice to give people who want to introduce their cat to this sort of lifestyle?
I would say take it slowly, do your research, read as much as you can on this kind of lifestyle, and have it fit with your current lifestyle. So if you are an urban hiker, then you're going to have to know if your cat can do only urban hikes. If you go out in the forest all the time, does your cat love that? And so you're going to have to introduce little pieces of experience to the cat and see what they take to. And, don't expect that the cat that goes downhill skiing and wears goggles is going to be your cat. That's going to be the unusual cat. Might be more the cat that just goes out in your garden, or a cat who just walks along a city block. And so know what your cat's inclinations are, and then research what the possibilities are, and then don't be afraid to ask for advice and help from other catventurers when you get started.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a wonderful community. We're part of it now, and we've seen just how it's so supportive, and there is a huge depth of information and knowledge. And
Yes.
if you are thinking about this sort of lifestyle, please access those communities, because they're really very approachable and lots of great advice in there. Everyone has their own unique perspective, and I think it just adds to this wonderful base and wealth of knowledge.
Exactly.
And if you could wave your magic wand, what would you wish for that would make the world better for Catventurous and their humans?
Oh, that's a good one. I would wish that we would actually see some Catventurers on the trail. So I would like to see more people trying it. I think that would be one of the best things. And then a general awareness of people who are out there not with a cat, and just that they would expect to see a cat and not be so shocked. Obviously, when we run into people with dogs, that becomes an issue for our cats, because they're not fond of dogs. I know some cats are, but not most cats probably are a little skittish, at least around a dog first time they meet. So I think if I could make the Catventurous world perfect, it would be that the cat goes out there and has the best time.
Yeah, without shocking people, without it being a shock to people. I love that. Well, actually, maybe that's a really great opportunity just for us to talk for a few moments about the Cats on Leash Awareness campaign, and what the drivers behind that were, and how it's been going so far. And do you want to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, sure. So for me, the catalyst for me was when our neighbor has a dog and they let it out. As I said, I live in an urban setting. We have a house and a garden, but it's a city. And so every neighbor is, 50 feet apart from each other. And so we started to have Mr. Bingley learn how to climb trees, because he's not really good at it. And we would go at 10 o'clock at night in the summer and walk around our little block. And he got aggressively attacked by a dog. Fortunately, he was in the tree, but the dog was huge and was able to actually put his paws on the limb he was on, and the owner didn't put the leash on him, didn't try and corral the dog away from Mr. Bingley, and he was petrified. Ended up jumping 6 feet onto a fence and into a dark yard, and we spent forever trying to find him. And fortunately, we found the leash, not the cat. And so he was petrified, and we were a little concerned about that. Before, he had not been afraid of dogs at all. He'd seen them walk by the house, and he was completely fine. So we waited a full month before we went out and tried it again. And so similar time at night, 10 o'clock, we're in the same tree, and that same dog is out. Whoa. And not a human in sight this time. So that was really unnerving. The dog started to come over, but I ran over. I knew the dog's name this time, and I grabbed it by the collar and I took it up to its house and knocked on the door. And, a couple teenagers were there and no parent. And I said, "Take your dog inside, please." And so that was the end of it. But now he's, petrified of dogs. And so, that was my initial experience with it, and I could see that it could be a problem. And then, of course, I'm hearing anecdotes on Instagram about cats that are having run-ins with dogs that are off leash in leash required areas. And then Mr. Bingley's best friend, Siberian Lizzie, had a really traumatic experience in early November, I think it was. And she and her mom were out walking in a similar situation around their home, and an off-leash dog came and aggressively attacked them, and it was much worse. And Lizzie climbed up very high in a tree, and her mom was slightly scratched up and injured, and tried to get the owners to corral the dog, and it was a big scenario. As a result, I was chatting with Lizzie and with her mom, and we decided to create this little adventure support chat group. And that's where you came into the picture. So I sent out this little inquiry to a number of Instagram friends. And so we started this chat group, and then we went on and we discussed all of our different issues with cat venturing. But for me, the main thing was, how do we address this off-leash dog concern, and what can we do about it? And we talked about being more vocal when we have these experiences, and it wasn't really getting anywhere. And then Olivia Bengal had her really devastating attack that required her tremendous surgery, and she was so severely injured and had huge vet bills, and the cat community really rallied around her to help her. And that was kind of like the light bulb going off.
For me too. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was a real catalyst. Yeah.
It was. And like within 48 hours, she had $9,000.
Wasn't it amazing?
Covered. And
amazing.
So, it was just like, wow, if that can happen, then what can we do, to promote this awareness that there are going to be cats on the trail. And if a leash is required for your pet in those areas, you should be obeying that leash law, because this is what can happen.
Yeah.
And so that was the main catalyst for Cats on Leash Awareness, and had no idea that it would be so well received.
So resonant. It's been amazing. Yeah, hasn't it? I mean, I guess I'm shocked, but not surprised. I think because I don't know, there's something in me that kind of senses that we were, and I think they felt what we were feeling as soon as Olivia was attacked. There was just this sort of sense that something needed to be done. And I think that the whole community were kind of like we were, they're just ready to take another step. So I think that energy was sitting there ready to be released. And it has been just such an amazing month, hasn't it? The way people have got behind it is just
and there was actually another kitty who was attacked before Mr. Bingley, or around that time when Mr. Bingley was attacked. That was also like in the back of my mind this whole time. And this cat was attacked by 2 or 3 dogs, I believe, and went over like a small cliff, but was injured and disappeared and was missing for 2 weeks before it was found. Because of it had a microchip, and it was found 4 miles away from the actual location of the incident. And so that was like always in the back of my mind. And and then as these events kept coming up and occurring, it just, for me, it was the most important thing to address for Catventure, because it's something you control. If the dog is on a leash, you're at least able to keep the pets separated while you're passing each other on a trail.
Yeah, and I mean, a off-leash dog can appear like that. Where you wouldn't, you don't see them, you don't hear them. Yeah,
right. Sure. And they're usually, the owner is usually not near it. And our experience is very much that the dog is separated from the owner by, sometimes 2 to 3 minutes before you see the human.
Yeah. And
by that time, it could be a disaster.
Yeah, it could be a real disaster. And I trust that most dog owners would hate that to happen to another person's cat. And so it is really about that education and raising awareness and just saying, hey, other pets are using this trail too. And if it's on leash, it's on leash. And we understand that if it's an off leash area, your dog is off leash, and we understand that as as owners of cats out on leash. So, at least you've got the choice. Then exactly what risks you will take. But when it's on leash, there is an expectation that dogs are on leash. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think we select places where leashes are required, because that at least will give us a fighting chance that the majority of the dogs we pass will be on a leash. But still, just in our neighborhood alone, we have a small nature preserve, and we go there a couple of times a week. Oh, there's Melba waking up. Hi!
She's just woken up.
Oh, how cute.
That's Mary.
We go to this neighborhood, and even though the leashes are required, we see these dogs off leash all the time, and it's really unfortunate. And some people are receptive when you request that they obey the leash law, and others aren't. And I read my cat's behavior at that point, and if they're very uncomfortable, we'll just go home.
Yeah. I mean, we are usually in places where dogs could be off leash. There's not many in Marseille and in France in general. There's not many areas that are on leash, and I mean, there are cultural differences, and you know, we just assume that there's always going to be dogs off leash.
Yeah.
And the few things that I do are, you know, I try to have Melba always quite close to me. I don't let her off on a long leash, and she gets stuffed in the backpack as, you know,
Yeah.
as at the first
sighting of a tail up.
yeah, or even
Yeah.
or even just any sounds that are people coming, or, you know,
Right.
we have to be super cautious. But yeah, I mean, yeah, and that, you know, I'm so glad that we've done this Cats on Leash Awareness, and I think March will be just the beginning of where we can take this as far as, you know, a service to the community. Yeah.
One of the things I actually do when we go to a trail, especially a new place, I pick up a stick. Now I actually keep it in the car because I found a perfect one. And that just, like, you know, I keep the stick not to hit a dog, but to have a physical barrier between us and
it's
a
like
dog.
a bite stick. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that classic bite stick idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've recently had to use it, and which was great, and it didn't bite the stick, but I was able to put it, you know, stick it into the ground in front of me. So it was about 2.5 feet in front of my feet, and the dog stopped. And I used dog commands, and the dog stayed there. But then it, you know, it did start doing its barking and jumping and leaping and all that. And Mr. Bingley was really scared. Fortunately, he was on the backpack, and all was good. But the owner did, I think it took about a minute for her to show up. And once she did, I said, you know, reminded her that I chose this park because it's a leash required park. And she's like, oh, I know leashes are required. And then she did nothing.
Yeah.
So that was really disheartening. So you
that's
do have to be, you have to be proactive. You have to anticipate that it's going to happen, and be prepared for it. And, you know, mentally it's a little bit too bad because you're not truly enjoying nature as much as you could. Because you want to keep your pet safe, but at the same time, it's the most important thing. So it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And is there something that you would like to share with us that I haven't asked you? Is there anything that springs to mind?
Just
Tell us about
love your pets.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we all do that, though.
We sure do. It's an incredibly cat loving community. It's just wonderful.
Here's what he looks like when he's sleeping, because nobody ever sees him. I never take pictures of him.
Hi, Mr. Bingley. I love, is it St. Patrick's Day? It's St. Patrick's Day when we're recording this. So it's St. Patrick's Day. And I saw the photo of his kilt. I love that.
Yeah. He got that from his friends in Scotland.
Ah, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Love it.
So.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and like I said, being my first guest. It's just it's a true pleasure and an honor, and you've got some wonderful knowledge to share, and you're awesome at Instagram, and have, you know, you've created an amazing community just on your own, and for that I thank you and congratulate you, and thank you for doing your part to raise awareness for Cats on Leash and sharing your knowledge with the community in such a generous way. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's my honor to be your first guest, and it's just really great. And I love seeing that you've taken this initiative to share your knowledge and experience with the cat community. And it's just great to have that resource out there for everybody to use. And I'm a big proponent of a Catventurous society.
Yeah, great.
It's just been wonderful. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you soon. Thanks. Bye.